Hey y'all, it's Heather here with Underwater Panther, and this video is about Millennials or Generation Y, 1981 through 1996. Now, I did read your comment, Kendall Finn, and she asked, can you please make a video on the restriction of Millennials? Much love and positivity sent your way. And she specifically said, like people holding them back. So I was going to do Generation X next. I have done the silent generation. Excuse me. So I did a video on the silent generation video already. Maybe I'll make this brighter so you can see me a little better. All right, so I've made a video on the silent generation 1928 through 1945. I've done a video on the baby boomers 1946 through 1964. Now, I was going to do the Generation X video, but I have a specific request for the Millennials 1981 through 1996. I myself am a millennial. So I hear you, and I am excited because I finally finished my millennial book, and this is what this video is going to be about. So I'm going to start with my opener. All right, so astrology, psychology, power, and the nervous system. So I'm not neutral about this, obviously. This is astrology and this is psychology. So I've been combining astrology and psychology for almost 10 years now. I've written over 30 books. And normally I specifically focus on the personality types, the 12 personality types, but recently I have branched off into like 15 other series. I'm getting into geopolitics, I'm getting into indigenous teachings, as well as the generations. I get very deep into polarity, culturally, collectively, polarity work, as well as individual polarity work. So, this is my generational video series, a part of that. This is nervous system science, and this is cultural. This is a cultural autopsy of a generation that adapted to conditions no one wanted to name. If that bothers you, this book is not for you. So I will upload this book after I finish this video on my website, and that will be available for purchase. You can find that information in the description box. So because millennials are not confused, entitled, or fragile, they are over adapted to instability, and astrology shows us exactly where, when, and how that happened. Astrology doesn't replace history, it tracks the cost of living through it. So I am breaking this down historically first. That is the external external facts, history, dates, what happened throughout that generation. So, what this book actually does. This work maps external history to internal imprint. So, not as a metaphor, as a pattern. We trace the world millennials were born into, economic promises that collapsed mid development, authority without accountability, medicine that entered the body without consent, technology that colonized time, attention, and identity, institutions that demanded trust while dissolving themselves, polarity collapse in relationships, constant adaptation without repair. Then we follow that pressure, how that pressure entered the nervous system. So then I will be breaking down the internal imprint through astrology. Through Pluto shows us what we couldn't avoid. Neptune shows how reality blurred, numbed, spiritualized, or escaped. So the outer planets are Pluto, Neptune, Uranus. Uranus shows what destabilized safety. So per astrologers, they break down generations according to those outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. Now, I do something a little bit different. I don't know many astrologers doing this. I am also integrating Chiron, which shows where identity fractured. Earth, not no astrologers talk about Earth. It is quite sad, in my opinion. Human design does talk about Earth, so I am making a huge point to integrate Earth with all of the work that I do. Earth shows what was lost semantically, rest, regulation, and embodiment. This is not personality astrology here. This is generational imprint astrology. And I'm also going to break down the asteroids, the feminine energy within that generation. The asteroids tell the part no one likes to look at, and also rarely anyone studies. Not many people understand the asteroids. It is another feminine pillar that has not been integrated into society. For some reason, we don't take Earth, our planet Earth, seriously. And so that means that we don't take our own bodies seriously, our own nervous system seriously. It's really wild. I am absolutely loving seeing certain people like Stephen Burns. He is um really getting the collective in tune with understanding how important our sun is, our solar cycles, as well as Earth, and how the outside world of our planet affects our actual world, our Earth. So that is really awesome. I love seeing that. I want to be a part of it. And so I do break down the asteroids. Ceres represents care, Juno commitment, Vesta devotion and life force, Pallas intuition and intelligence, Lilith truth, sexuality and refusal. So we do need to focus on the asteroids in Chiron individually in our own birth charts, but we can also break that down generationally. I have never seen anyone do that before, so I am excited. So these are not five separate wounds here with the asteroids. They are one survival logic applied everywhere. And millennials inherited that logic, then had to live inside systems that no longer even pretended to support it. So, transmission, what moves through bodies, not opinions. Generations don't just pass down beliefs, they pass down nervous system expectations. What felt safe, what got punished, what had to be suppressed to survive. Boomers transmitted endurance, Gen X transmitted detachment, millennials inherited collapse and where and were told to self regulate their way out of it. That's why millennials became researchers, boundary obsessed, emotionally literate but exhausted, allergic to false authority, suspicious of convenience, desperate for meaning but intolerant of bullshit. Not because they're broken, but because they remember a before and had to survive an after. Why this matters now. The last to remember unmediated time. I am just sitting here really truly appreciating my childhood and understanding that my generation specifically remembers a time where technology was not where it is now. Relationships were certainly more intimate and not just online. Um, it just I truly had a wonderful childhood. I grew up on the farm riding four-wheelers, really a part of getting outside, and yeah, so it's very, very interesting. So the first generation to live inside constant extraction, the bridge between external authority and internal sovereignty. This book exists because what adapted can be integrated, but only if it's named honestly. I'm not here to soothe, I am here to map out your higher potential. I am obsessed with architecture. And I love videos. I always watch videos on YouTube of the people what do you call it? They're just like going into abandoned buildings, castles. I love architecture in the actual physical world, housing, castles. I love old buildings, but I also love architecture through psychology, understanding, why people are the way they are individually and collectively. So, architecture is my absolute favorite thing. Mapping out the blueprint psychologically and astrologically. So, yeah. So, anyways, so that is the introduction to this book. This one goes out to Kendall Finn. Thank you so much for kicking me in my rear end to get my Millennial book done. I am more excited about this book, obviously, than any of the other generational books, probably besides Generation Alpha. So I will be going back to Generation X probably after this Millennial, just to get the Generation X. I will be going through each generation. After that will be Generation Z and then Generation Alpha. So that is my introduction. 11 minutes, not bad. All right, so let's get into the video. Going to make this smaller so you can actually see my book that I am going to be reading from. All right. I wasn't really sure how to set this up. I'm new to this software, but I do absolutely love it. All right, so here we are, Underwater Panther, Astro-Psychological plus Historical Generation series, book series, and video series here on YouTube. So the Millennials are also known as Generation Y, and the date is 1981 through 1996. All right, so what we will be covering, I'm actually going to speed through this because I have it below. So the master structure here is the external conditioning. So this is the history, the dates, what happened through the 5 pillars: economy, war, global threat, politics, and authority, education, religion and morality, technology and medicine, marriage and gender roles, music, culture, and media. So that is the external history that I will be going through. Part 2 is the internal imprint with astrology. That includes Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, and Chiron, Earth, and the asteroids. And then part 3 is the transmission, what the millennials passed down without meaning to. So each pillar here in the external events, the non-astrological portion, answers one question: what did daily life train the nervous system to expect? So no psychology, astrology, just the reality. So I might I might have actually combined that here, but all right, let's get into it. So I'm going to get a little bit more comfortable here. Hopefully you can hear me well. Should probably do an audio check, but I just don't really feel like it. All right, so external history part 1. We are going to dive deep into the economy. Millennials, 1981 through 1996. All right, work hard, stay flexible, and still fall behind is the quotation here. Historical conditions, what actually happened? All right, so born into transition, not stability. Millennials were born after the post war boom had ended. They did not experience an economy expanding for them, only one extracting from them. Wages had already begun decoupling from productivity before their childhood. Millennials were not shaped by an economy of expansion, they were shaped by an economy of delayed stability. Actually going to move this mic a little bit. All right, so all right, millennials were not shaped by an economy of expansion. They were shaped by an economy of delayed stability. Where Generation X came of age during the early fracturing of economic promises, millennials were born into the aftershock. an economy that still spoke the language of opportunity while quietly removing its structural supports. This created a unique contradiction. The promise of success was loudly marketed. The pathways to stability were quietly eroded. Millennials were raised to prepare for a future that no longer structurally existed. Take a quick water break. I am definitely one of those people that rotate between coffee, water, juice, and an energy drink. I need options. All right. So, key economic backdrop. 1980s through the 1990s, deregulation, offshoring, and financialization, unions weakened or dismantled, job security quietly disappears while the myth of opportunity remains. Two economic shocks define the generation. 2001 dot-com crash, early career disruptions for older millennials. 2008 global financial crisis, existential rupture. For many millennials, entry into adulthood coincided with systemic collapse. Degrees lost value overnight, jobs disappeared after years of promised preparation, debt remained regardless of outcome. I just don't really know where to put my video here so it's not in the way. There we go. That might be better. I'm not really worried about my face up here, more worried about the information. All right. So, the economic environment millennials inherited. Millennials grew up during a period defined by deregulation, normalized as efficiency, corporate consolidation, wage stagnation masked by consumer access, debt framed as opportunity, and productivity detached from security. Unlike Gen X, who learned early not to trust institutions, millennials were still actively trained to believe in them, even as those institutions failed to reciprocate. This produced an economy that required higher credentials for lower returns, longer hours for less purchasing power, flexibility without protection, and loyalty without guarantees. Student loan explosion. College framed as mandatory for survival, tuition rose dramatically, loans were normalized as investment in yourself. Tuition rose dramatically. I just said that. Debt became inescapable and non dischargeable. Housing becomes unattainable. Home ownership, once a boomer baseline, becomes delayed or impossible. Millennials watched. Parents buy homes on single incomes while they face dual incomes plus debt plus rising rents. The gig economy emerges. Flexibility replaces security. Side hustles replaces pensions. Loyalty is demanded without reciprocity, and benefits are detached from employment. The education to debt pipeline. I'm actually extremely excited about this video and book. I literally got into my old college courses. I still have books from my college era, and I have a lot of research papers that I pulled out I just got so frustrated. Everything I studied into, I was just so frustrated with the systems. And it was really fascinating. This really is closing a very, very, this really hits me. It really does. Like, I've been studying some of these topics since 2007, and I just got so frustrated. I decided to change careers multiple times and then just ended up getting into accounting and then my blue collar job that I currently still have, and didn't really want to be a part of any of these systems. I could see right through. So this is really closing a very long storyline for me, honestly. I am so excited to be getting this information out there. All right, so the education to debt pipeline. For millennials, higher education was presented not as an option, but as a moral obligation. The message was clear: if you work hard, go to school, and do everything right, you'll be okay. What was not disclosed: tuition inflation outpacing wages, credential saturation, jobs decoupled from degrees, debt designed to be non dischargeable, housing costs rising faster than income. This created the first major economic bind for millennials. Failure was framed as personal flaw, not a structural outcome. The 2008 financial crisis as a generational imprint. For millennials, the 2008 financial crisis was not a setback, it was an initiation. Many millennials entered adulthood during hiring freezes, mass layoffs, collapse, retirement accounts, their parents, evaporated job ladders, and foreclosures normalized. Crucially, millennials did not experience an economic before. There was no stable baseline to return to. The economy they entered was already permanently unstable, but they were still expected to perform optimism, ambition, and productivity as if it weren't. The rise of hustle as economic survival. Because traditional stability was unavailable, millennials adapted through side hustles, gig work, personal branding, self optimization, and monetizing identity, creativity, and emotional labor. This was not entrepreneurial freedom, it was distributed, economic risk. Where Gen X learned independence through emotional self-reliance, millennials were forced into financial self-reliance without leverage. The result: chronic overwork, blurred boundaries between self and labor, burnout framed as inadequacy, rest associated with guilt. Daily, what daily life trained implicitly. Millennials were trained to expect instability even when doing everything right, rules that change after compliance, merit without reward, endless self optimization without arrival, scarcity disguised as a personal failure. They learned early education does not guarantee security, hard work does not guarantee stability, institutions will not absorb risk, individuals must. The psychological cost of economic precarity. Millennials internalized a constant economic tension. Work harder, but don't expect security. Want stability, but don't rely on systems. Invest in yourself, but don't stop producing. Care deeply, but don't fall behind. This creates a nervous system economy. Anxiety as baseline, future planning as stressor, delayed adulthood milestones, constant comparison without shared timelines. At the body level, this trains chronic vigilance, hyperadaptability, overfunctioning, fear of rest, guilt around pleasure, identity fused with trying, not arriving. Semantic translation. If I stop moving, I fall behind. If I relax, something bad will happen. If I fail, it's because I didn't do enough. Unlike Gen X's emotional detachment, millennials developed hyper responsibility, the sense they must personally compensate for systemic failure. God, I feel this so deeply. Core economic theme of the millennial generation. Millennials were not economically entitled, they were economically overconditioned. They were trained to absorb instability, self correct endlessly, blame themselves for structural limits, stay productive without protection. This is the foundation for burnout culture, meaning crisis, delayed family formation, polarity confusion. I am going to break down polarity confusion in depth. And that is a whole different series, even within itself, which I will get into after I create this video. I am a little burnout on Scorpio. I've made many videos on Scorpio. The millennials are Scorpio, Pluto in Scorpio. And so I'm so happy that I'm working on that series finally. I've made a 500-page book on Scorpio, and Scorpio energy is extremely deep in this generation of millennials, and I will break that down in the astrological portion. But yeah, um, this is a lot, so let's stay on track here. All right, so the polarity confusion is what got me off track. It's the millennial generation, the polarity confusion has hit us the absolute most. And I see it. I've been understanding it for 6 years now, but I understand it now more than ever. And I am here to walk with you through the terrible polarity confusion. It is truly awful. Resentment towards authority paired with self blame. Boomers were trained if I do what's expected, life should work. Millennials were trained if life doesn't work, it must be because I didn't try hard enough. Even when the system was collapsing, wages were stagnant, housing was inaccessible, and debt was structural. Failure was internalized, not contextualized. An economy that never stabilized forced millennials to build identity, relationships, and meaning on shifting ground, which reshaped not just how they worked, but how they related to power, gender, intimacy, and self worth. Emotional and psychological shadow. This economic environment created burnout normalized as adulthood, anxiety mistaken for ambition, self worth tied to output, shame around needing help, difficulty trusting rest, safety, or support. Millennials didn't just inherit stress, they inherited responsibility without authority. Final nervous system thesis with the economy pillar. I must carry myself because no system will catch me. This is the root of millennial exhaustion, authority distrust, hustle culture, polarity confusion, and chronic self blame. Indigenous counterpoint, economic orientation. Where industrial capitalism taught survival through accumulation, worth through productivity, and safety through ownership, indigenous systems taught survival through relationship, worth through contribution, and safety through reciprocity with land and people. Millennials were raised without either system fully intact. Capitalism no longer provided security. Indigenous relational economies had already been erased. They inherited responsibility without belonging. All right, so this is a rather large portion of my book. I am going to cap this video here. I'm going to pull out some of my old papers. This is extremely, very, very close to my heart. I had many, many very close friends in the military. And yeah, I'm going to sit here to myself for a little bit before I do this section. I really truly want to do this section justice. Yeah, it's just really deep, really, really close to my heart. And I studied a lot of this back in college. It really, really, truly upset me. And so I'm really happy that I have it all organized and understood on the deepest level that I ever have. And so, yeah, I'm going to cap this video here. Hopefully, you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. I truly am so deeply, deeply thankful for my new subscribers. I am slowly gaining traction. I've been making this, videos on YouTube for a very long time now. And I'm getting into a groove now where everything is a lot quicker and it's getting more fun, and I'm ready to take on more. So, anywho, yeah, so this one goes out to you, Kindle Finn. Thank you so much. You really, really got me going. I finally launched this book and series. So I truly thank you so much for your comment and pushing me. It doesn't take much to get me in gear. All I need is a little pat, a little, "Hey, thank you," or whatever, little comment. All of that goes a very long ways for me, so I'm happy. Thank you so much for being here, and feel free to leave a comment on your thoughts and feelings. I do read all of my comments, and I will see you in the next video.